Well, good morning. It is 9 a.m. and welcome to this year's community experience. This is where we hope that you will become more deeply connected or more deeply committed to your communities by being more deeply connected in this community. Just so that you are aware, there are around 400 of you who have committed to this work of building and changing our Ohio landscape to be a continuum of care for our men and women that are returning to our communities. My name is Reba Collins. I work with the West Ohio Conference of the United Methodist Church in our justice involved ministry called All In Community, and it has been my pleasure for the last 4 years to coordinate the Building Bridges community experience. Just so that you're aware, today we are all virtual, and then tomorrow about 250 of you registered to participate locally at one of our 6 regional host sites. And I just want to say this would not be possible at all, this kind of gathering across the state of Ohio and even some folks from out of Ohio. It would not be possible without our volunteer planning team. In the midst of all the rest that they do, they volunteer to make this event possible. So I just want to publicly thank our representatives or our partners in this work, and that includes the Department of Rehabilitation and Correction, Office of Reentry. I'm going to read my list, so please bear with me. But when you see these folks, please say thank you for the work that they've done. So the Office of Reentry, the Ohio Association of Local Reentry Coalitions, relink.org, Accompanying Returning Citizens with Hope, the 4-7 Prison Ministry, Hamilton County Office of Reentry, University of Cincinnati Corrections Institute, Central Ohio Restored Citizens Collaborative, Books for Bruises, and then also a big thank you to our 6 regional host sites, Allen, Auglaize, and Hardin County Reentry Coalition, and Trinity United Methodist Church in Lima, the Northwest Ohio Reentry Coalition and Ohio Means Jobs in Toledo, the Hamilton County Office of Reentry, 4-7 Prison Ministry, and Gaines United Methodist Church in Cincinnati, Accompanying Returning Citizens with Hope, the Central Ohio Restored Citizens Collaborative, and the West Ohio Conference in Columbus, relink.org, Grace Church in Cleveland, and then relink.org, Books for Bruises, and Churchill United Methodist Church in Youngstown. All of these host sites have been planning, and their coordinators have been planning to make tomorrow yet another impactful day. And of course, have to thank all the presenters, facilitators, and you, the participants, for working together to create and sustain a community, a caring community for our returning neighbors. This work is not possible without your engagement and your commitment. And so today, we really hope, over today and tomorrow, we really, really hope that you will, in some ways, discover your why for doing this work, or rejuvenate your why, or even in some instances, resurrect your why for this work. And so today, for our time virtually, just a few housekeeping matters. One, I have been alerted that there is going to be a national alert. So beginning around the 2:30 hour, 2:30 to about 2:40 or 2:50. So your phones might start blowing up with a national alert. It's a test, so just kind of work through that. If you are facilitating or presenting at that 2:30 session, just be aware that that's going to be occurring. And so don't panic, just know that it is a test. You should have received as well an email from me yesterday with all the Zoom links, and another one this morning directing you to the Building Bridges website for all your information. There are downloads of the PDFs, of presenters, of host site directions, all that you need. All the information, let's just say, that I have to give you is on that website. So please use the email today and from yesterday to navigate your experience. And I love what is happening in the chat. People are identifying who they are and where they're from. So please continue to do that. Look at the chat, use it for co-learning, for co-creating, for collaborating and connecting with those that are doing this work with you. These are your co-laborers, and we really want to create mutual learning environments, whatever session you're in. So please use the chat, please engage with your presenters in that. If you think, good morning, Tom. If you think you need some form of participant verification, make sure today, particularly in your Zoom session, that your Zoom name matches who you are. We cannot track phone numbers, acronyms, or organization affiliations. So your participation is tracked based on your Zoom name. So please make sure that happens. Again, as well, all sessions will be recorded. If you do not wish to appear in video, please disable your camera. We're going to record the sessions and then post them next week to the Building Bridges YouTube page for folks to view. And then also all sessions will be open today, roughly 3 to 4 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes before the session starts. So if you are a participant, click on your link, you'll be put in the waiting room. This allows our presenters to get settled before you all enter into that space. So with all that being said, it is my distinct pleasure always to invite the Bishop of the West Ohio Conference, Bishop Gregory Von Palmer, to invite us into engaging in the work of building community. I absolutely love what he said at our annual gathering across our West Ohio Conference this last summer in Dayton, when he said, healthy community is always looking for who is not there. And Bishop Palmer, this community, this reentry community, is always looking for those who are not there, who are not being served, who do not have access, who are not thriving in community. And so I just appreciate you taking the time out of what I know is an incredibly packed schedule, both here in West Ohio, nationally, and globally within the United Methodist Church. So good morning to you, sir, and thank you for being here with us today. And so I invite you to welcome us.
Thank you, Reba. Your kind words are always appreciated. They're overwhelming. And I want to say to the audience and all of the colleagues who are gathered, don't get it twisted. The very best speaker at our annual conference this year was Reba Collins, who was our theologian in residence. So we've given her a new title, and she more than exceeded the bar. So thank you. And thank you for this vision, the way you pull all of us together and partner with us, and you invite us to partner with you, with one another, with the power of the Holy Spirit to make a difference in our world. That said, I'm welcoming all of you to this time and honored beyond belief to have this opportunity one more time. So thank you for tolerating me. Forgive me that I'm not in my usual space where I have better lighting for Zoom, but was speaking in Bowling Green last night. So I'm literally sitting in my hotel room before returning to Columbus to do this. So I hope it's not too distracting, and I will try not to keep you too long. In addition to thanking Reba, she invited us to thank one another for all of the things that we're doing in various places, in various senses of connection, and the ways in which we connect with each other to make communities vibrant and robust, to see everyone, and to especially see the unseen in our communities, who are often those whose lives have been touched, whose lives have been justice involved. And so whether or not they are families left behind, whether or not they are returning citizens, whether or not they are a part of a circle of people that believe that they've been in some way harmed by others, we honor all of them and see all of them as our partners in building a vibrant future. That said, would you allow me to offer a prayer as we begin our time? And then I purpose to make a few short remarks that I hope will contribute to the day. Gracious and holy God, you have called us to another day. We are mindful that this is a day that we have not ever seen before. It's a day that we will never see again. And so we ask that you would help us by your power this day to do all the good that we can do, to deepen and build all of the relationships that we can, not for our glory, but for yours, and for the upbuilding of our common humanity and the building of beloved community. Thank you for all of the persons who are participating and all of the partners who have visioned and done the labor to get us to this point for this fabulous two-day event. And now use us, inspire us, build us, encourage us beyond our wildest imagination, not only to dream, but to see and to participate in creating a new future. This we ask this day with thanksgiving. Amen. So I wanted to make a few remarks, and the first is to honor the theme that has been set by all of you who are the planners and now the participants, because by signing on in some way, you are signing on to the theme of hope, help, and healing. And this transformational event of building bridges of community and to community and in community has continued to inspire and encourage us. And we come together for this mutual learning, for this upbuilding, for this networking, and for this partnership. I'm inviting you to see this ongoing work, because I believe it's already true, and to take this year's theme of hope, help, and healing against a larger background of a vision that we are all claiming and being claimed by, and that is of being community, building community, and I want to say particularly becoming the beloved community that I would say, from where I sit and where I stand and what orients me, that God has always hoped for each one of us. We are in the process of building community by rebuilding community, one person, one relationship, one neighborhood, one county, one city, one whatever at a time. And the building or the rebuilding of community begins with acknowledging the inherent worth and value of every person and everything. There is a strain, I am told, in Jewish mysticism that invites people as they move about and as they go about their daily lives to see in front of everyone that they may encounter or simply pass by an angel who has been assigned to that person. And that angel is rotating flaming swords, so to speak. But more important than that, that angel is announcing, behold, the image and the likeness of God. Can you imagine that? As you walk down the street, as you move about places where you shop, as you move in and out of your workplaces, as you're in your neighborhood and as you're in your car, that in front of everyone that you encounter is an angel who is announcing, behold, the image and the likeness of God. And oh, by the way, it's true the other way around. That angel, an angel, has been assigned to you according to this strain of Jewish mysticism, announcing to everyone that you encounter and everyone that sees you, behold, the image and the likeness of God. We will not ever build beloved community, much less rebuild community, much less restore relationships and restore members of the community to the community from which they have been separated for whatever reason, until we actually take into ourselves, believe anew or believe again, that whether or not there is some angel that we can see, I'm not here to argue that, but that it is absolutely true that when I encounter you, you encounter me, no matter what path I have been on in life and no matter where I've spent the night before. Hear the announcement, behold the image and the likeness of God. And I begin to see you through that lens, that I'm actually looking into the image and the likeness of God. Reba mentioned a comment that I made during a presentation at our annual conference, that part of our challenge is not seeing one another. And yet we live in a culture where all of the messages, particularly from entertainment and sports and even from politics, are people saying, see me. But until it comes from the inside, where we actually see one another because we are tutored, we are trained, we're wired, we are rewired in a way in which we have new eyes and new lenses and new hearts, where we choose, because it is absolutely true that everyone and everything we encounter is a part of God's magnificent creation. We do about this work of hope and healing and help by continuing also to understand that we are made for relationship. We are wired for community. In spite of all of our protestations against being in community and all of our impulses to go our own way, we are made for community. Some cultures understand this better than Western culture does. In the Ubuntu mindset in Southern Africa, people often say, I am because we are. This is the undergirding reality, that I do not lose my individuality because I'm a part of a community. In fact, my individuality is enriched because it is sustained, nurtured, and informed by a community that has shaped me. I just don't land here. I just don't end up here with no connection to any reality that has come before me, or a disconnect to any reality that will come after me. I am a part of a continuous stream of the activity of my community, of my tribe. In some cases, we might say of our nation, but more important, of the living God who is at work in each of us and all of us. And because we are made for relationship and community, it is absolutely important that we see and acknowledge one another. And that where community has been broken by whatever, our indifference or our actions, to move toward reconciliation. That's the hope. That's the help, that's the healing that we are all in search of. It is not just our returning neighbors that need this. We need it if we are to be fully members of the community. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, even with our so-called perfect and pristine and pure lives, we have so disconnected ourselves from our neighbors and our community that we are living in alienated ways rather than healing, hopeful, and reconciling ways. That's why I am want to say that I believe that the culture the cancel culture is an absolute failure and completely undermines any notions of hopeful, helpful, and healing community. Because when I cancel you for whatever reason, or you cancel me for whatever reason, or we cancel our returning neighbors for whatever reason, or we cancel this one or that one, we are saying that I do not want to be a part of healing, helping, and hopeful community. I prefer to do it myself, to go it alone. And in reality, none of us can make it on our own. The cancel culture is a failure. And we need to move away from it and speak against it. In fact, by our participation in building bridges of community, we are saying we do not believe that there is any validity or power in a cancel culture. We choose, particularly in this work of the healing of persons, relationships, and communities, of redemption and reconciliation, we refuse to cancel anyone. And we plead and we beg that no one cancel themselves. We are wired for relationship and community, and none of us are ever our best selves apart from it. Finally, this. I was listening to a biomedical engineer who is a staff person at a place where I'm on the board of directors or the board of trustees. He's the chief academic officer in his setting. And he said something that stuck with me a couple of years ago. He said that I believe, not just from the vantage point of hard science, but I believe that every problem already has within it the solution. Every challenge already has within it the solution to overcoming that challenge. I have said in theological terms often to people in the Christian community that I happen to serve, but I believe it's true beyond matters of faith and religion and religious practice, that we all already have individually and together everything that we need to take the next faithful step in whatever journey we are on. We already know how to build community. It's just sometimes we don't want to put in the work and the sweat equity. But we have within us, and in the community, we have all of the resources. No one of us, no individual, no agency, no movement, no partner who is involved in this need know everything. But together among us, we have everything that we need, because every problem has within it the solution already. We all and together have everything we need to take the next faithful step in building and rebuilding community. And we are, as the saying goes, not to be cliche, we are literally in our being and working together on this good work of hope, of help, and healing. We are enough. If we can take these truths into ourselves, imagine what we can be. Imagine the redemption. Imagine the reconciliation. Imagine the renewal of robust community. Imagine safety. Imagine people that wake up enthusiastic to be alive because they see possibilities for themselves and they are no longer bound by their past that may have defined them. We have what we need. You, my friends, through your commitment prior to this event and your participation in it and what you do every day, you are enough. Amen.
Thank you, Bishop Palmer. I see here a lot of amens I see a lot of amens in the chat. So thank you for those encouraging, inspiring, and challenging words to us this morning. We really appreciate that. And you have set the bar high and you've set the tone well. So thank you for that. And many blessings to you and the work that you're doing in galvanizing and challenging, as always, our faith communities to understand that we are enough, that God provides what he orchestrates, and that the work in the community is just as important as the work in the church. So thank you for that always. And we send you on your way, and have a good day, sir. So as Bishop Palmer leaves us, again, thank you all for putting into the chat who you are, where you are located, and what brings you to this space. So again, I invite you to do that. We've gained some folks over the bishop's talk, so just a couple quick reminders as we transition to our panel discussion and our opening session. Today is one, there will be an alert at around 2:30 today. It's a test, alert test, national, it's not like the National Weather Service test, but it's some national test. So your phone will signal around 2:30 today, so don't panic on that. And if you're a presenter, don't panic on that as well. Just move through it as best you can. Second, for some of us, we've been doing Zoom for a while, but we kind of forget some things. So if you are seeing like a bunch of just names on your screen, you can go up to the corner of the view in the right-hand corner, click on that little thing that says view, and you can hide non-video participants. That will declutter your screen significantly. And then you can choose gallery view or speaker view. For our opening session, I suggest gallery view because in a few minutes, there are going to be 4 of us on this screen. And so you'll get to see everybody that way. Or if you just want to see who's speaking, then just put the speaker view. So I invite you to do that just to navigate throughout the day together as well. And then finally, if you at some point think that you need to get some verification of your participation today, then make sure that your screen name is your name, because we cannot track phone numbers or acronyms for organizations or organization affiliation. So again, thanks to Bishop Palmer for giving of his time this morning. So now we're going to transition to our opening session. And as I introduce our opening session panel, I invite them to unmute and to disable their video, or enable their video. And so I just have the distinct pleasure of working quite regularly, and many of you do as well, with our panelists. And so I want to first introduce Roni Burkes Trowsdell. And if you go on the website, you can see her bio. And so we're not even going to get into that. What I want to get, because that's kind of like the technical piece of Roni and what she does and her position and things like that. I just want to introduce Roni as a person, as an angel who is committed to this work. And the reason why she is committed to this work is because she cares. And at the end of the day, that is what it is about, is that she cares for the men and women that were under her care when she was inside the institution. And she definitely cares about our men and women that are coming home from incarceration to our communities. And she also cares about our communities. So, Roni, we are just delighted to have you as the Deputy Director for the Office of Reentry, which for those of you who are new to this space, that office is the one that is tasked by our Ohio government to create pathways for return that are safe and healthy for everybody. And Roni has that distinct pleasure of sitting in the middle. She works both, at the high end of it across systems and structures and policies and things. And she operates on the other end of that with individuals, with institutions, with folks that are managing the care of our men and women coming home. So Roni, thanks for being here. And then I invite Tom Luettke to open his camera. Tom is the president of the Ohio Association of Local Reentry Coalitions. He also works very closely with the Local Reentry Coalition in the Toledo area. He's a lawyer by trade. Every time I'm around Tom, I learn something new about how to do this work locally. how to engage, again, folks that are kind of at the high end, that are making policy decisions and maintaining systems and structures, but also how to engage our men and women coming home and help them find their purpose in their incarceration experience, right? And building better community and building better pathways and mentoring, a person that is this a little bit behind them in their own reentry journey. So that is what I love and appreciate about Tom. And just like Roni, he does the work because he cares. And then the final person I invite to their enable their camera is Dr. Mike Davis, who sits with Roni in the Department of Rehabilitation and Correction for Ohio, but is over the recreation and religious services area. And so part of Mike's work is to work with chaplains, our prison chaplains, but it's also to work with our faith-based community partners. And again, not necessarily becoming experts in prison ministry, but really experts in community and reentry ministry. And so Mike is the one who actually got me into this mess 4 years ago. So thank you for that, because Mike's heart is really for community and how do we create a different narrative around reentry. Because if our narrative is constantly punishment, lock people up, remove people from community, that does not meet the reality that 97% of our folks that are currently under the care of Roni and Mike will be eventually coming under the care of folks like Tom back into our community. So thank you all for being here and being part of this opening discussion. And so I'm just going to start with kind of our title. The title of our time today is Changing Ohio's Reentry Landscape. And I want us to, and I invite our participants as well, to put a landscape together with Roni and Tom and Mike. I want us to put our landscape in the context as well of this year's theme, Hope, Help, and Healing with Returning Neighbors. And we often miss that with component in this theme. We often want to do 2, we often want to do 4, or we just don't want to do it all. And with is where it's at, because with signals that the people, the men and women who are coming home, add value and have value in this process of hope, help, and healing within our community context. And it also signals that we are not here to take power from you, or to grant you power if we feel that it's necessary or that we want to, but people who are men and women who are coming home have power within themselves. And so so part of that work that we're going to be talking about today is how do we do with well. So, pictures are worth 1,000 words. And what I love about working with Tom and Roni and Mike is that they like to tell stories. And stories are pictures, right? They're pictures of things. So today I'm going to guide us in painting a reentry landscape that is filled with hope, help, and healing. So our landscape, really, it's going to be kind of like a mural. I recently was in Colorado and in these little towns, and they're all of these murals in these small towns. And often, our small town murals depict like a time and place or events that have occurred or the history of how we have formed as community. And whether it's a big landscape, like I love Ansel Adams' pictures of Yosemite, and when you think about landscapes like that, or murals, they capture that point in time or a journey over time, and both capture stories. So as we go along, I want each of our panelists, and I want each of our participants in the chat to add to this picture we are painting together. And so when we think about, and this is the first question to our panel, thinking about Ohio's reentry landscape, let's just start with the background, with the mountains or the deserts or the valleys or whatever that is. And the background is going to represent our community setting in which reentry occurs. And so each of our participants has its own background. Each of you have your own background. What would you put in your picture that represents the current challenges within our Ohio reentry community? And I know it's a little vague, so we got to kind of activate our imagination, which I think is where some of our best work occurs. So what would you put in your pictures? And I'm going to invite Roni to kind of paint the picture with the challenge, and then Mike, and then Tom. So Roni, I give it over to you.
Thank you, Reba. And but first, I just have to say thank you, Reba, so much for just always be willing to organize an event like this. And we are always so grateful to you. Bishop Palmer is phenomenal. He's very inspiring, and a lot of the words he said today, I really took to heart. So I just want to thank you, the West Ohio Conference, and the United Methodist Church for always being a gracious host. And I'm certainly always honored to serve on a panel with Tom and Mike. And I'm looking forward to this discussion today. So Reba, when I think about the background of the reentry landscape, and this is not just in Ohio, this is across our country. And I think about challenges, I could sit here and list many, and you know me well enough to know that I could. But I really thought about this, and I thought, what is a major challenge? What's something I don't talk about all the time? And everybody who knows me knows I talk about housing. I'm so passionate about housing. But I really think that a challenge that I would put on that landscape is just actual biases. Our folks experience so many biases due to that felony conviction, and that is a huge challenge. That bias impacts a lot of different things, some implicit, some not. And the people that we serve in our community, whether those biases are in the arena of housing or where they're in the arena of employment or education, they impact them severely. And so let me just share a little bit, and I'm sure at some point, Reba, I will tell a story because I am a storyteller. But so let's just start off thinking about housing. To me, housing is a right. It's a basic human right. People will say it's a privilege. It's a privilege for you to live in my community. It's a privilege for me to rent to you. It's a right. People deserve this basic human right. But in our society, here's what we see. We see people apply who have been impacted by the criminal justice system, apply for apartments or some sort of housing. And one of the first questions asked is about that felony conviction. And I'll tell you, it happens because I know this, and I've told this story many times, but it really impacted me. My husband and I sold our house, sold in a day. We were building another house that wasn't ready for a while. We had to go into an apartment after 16 years. Everywhere we went, the first question asked was about the felony background, or they would say, we do a background check. And so I began to engage those housing providers in that discussion about that background check. And at one point, I went back and forth with a housing provider because they told me if somebody had a felony conviction that was over 25 years old, they still would not rent to them. That's just crazy to me. And so housing is so near and dear to my heart. And my husband at one point said, look, you got to stop arguing with these people. We got 30 days to get out of our house. You're not at work. But that's how much I care, and that's how much it impacts, and that's how much I didn't understand the issue until it happened to me. So certainly those biases, we see those biases with employment. In our community, people transitioning from incarceration face many challenges with employment. It's interesting because the pandemic has helped with that, and I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit later. But it does, those background checks. And then I remember being in a meeting with colleges and universities, and they're talking about background checks for people who want to get a simple education. They want to go to school, they want to better themselves. But that felony conviction, their biases around that, how they feel, automatically places fears in the minds of others. Our colleges are wondering, our campus is going to be safe because somebody has a felony conviction. There's a whole lot of people on campus that don't have a felony conviction that impact the safety of those college campuses. So these biases often follow people the rest of their lives. And honestly, I think we have to be ready to erase that from our landscape. We have to be ready to appropriately address those biases and challenge them. And I'll say challenge them when appropriate, because my husband didn't think it was appropriate when I challenged the apartment people, because I'm sure after we left several places, they probably didn't want to rent to us anyways. But we have to be willing to challenge folks. We have to be willing to educate people. And we have to do it in the community, because people are returning home to the community and they deserve equal access. They deserve opportunities. They deserve to not be labeled. And so, Reba, my reentry landscape challenge would be bias.
Oh, that's awesome. Yes. And it's hidden, right? It's under the landscape, the visible landscape. And that is, it's the iceberg. It's the iceberg of, 20% on top, and then the whole iceberg underneath is that. So thank you for that, Roni. And so Mike, what would you like to add to the landscape that is a challenge?
Wow, Reba, you certainly have posed a question that we have to be careful in our consideration and thoughtful in responses. And so I appreciate what Ronette said. So dealing with bias, right, is certainly one of the key issues challenging us. But when I think about this, I really, Reba, when I think about a landscape, that sort of broad view, I think about where we are and how we got here. And I think it is incumbent upon us to pay particular attention to what's happening now in comparison to how we got here. And I would just say everybody should have a copy of Robert Martinson's piece where he researched programs in the New York prison system, and in summation found that no programs in and of themselves rehabilitated and led to reentry or successful reentry. No program, listen, no program in and of itself. Now, this was during the medical model that was incorporated in prison systems across the country. During the same time, the mid-70s, you think about all the things that were happening in the country with crime. Think about some of the things that happened within prison systems in the country. And there were those that bottom lined this piece of research as nothing works. And if nothing works, then the response to that is lock them up. And so that set us off on this trek, this journey of mass incarceration, where at its height, well publicized and documented that 1 in 100 adults were in jail or prison in this country, 1 in 100. And that in Ohio, 1 in 25 were under some form of correctional supervision in this country. And so since that time, almost a decade ago, we've been on a journey to de-incarcerate systems. Back in 08, 09, 750,000 people were being returned from from jail or prison back to communities all over the country. The numbers are significantly lower. And so I have to ask, where have all the people gone? And they've gone into our community. So our landscape includes the realization and understanding that this is a we and us situation. It's not a they and those people, that we are all in it together. Reentry in and of itself, I mean, sort of that return, that release and that return, that's been happening since the beginning of jails and prisons. but this idea that we can weave into the fabric of our very being this idea that we have to pursue doing justice, and doing justice means that, and I know you guys have probably heard me say a few times, means that people don't have to beg for what they need. Like Ronette just said, housing is a right. Why should people have to beg for something we should all have opportunity to enjoy? And so the landscape for me includes understanding where we are, and with that, how we got here, and what will be the next action items on the agenda. I watch the news, like many of you, and I watch the news, and I see the way the pictures are painted of people who commit crime, people who have returned to the community that might have that negative credential in their background, how that's always heightened anytime there's a new crime committed. And my concern, I think about the landscape, I think about, you all know, I'm partial to Southeast Ohio and the hills and hollers. And I think about the whistling sound in the silence of a counter voice that shares and tells the stories of the great victories that are being won on behalf of our neighbors who've had a period of incarceration, have returned to the community, and are leading in various areas and are making a difference in their lives and making great contributions to our community. The landscape as it looks to me right now is that if we aren't active in, as Danielle Ayers and Reginald Williams in their book, Doing Social Justice in the Black Church, if we don't go to Pharaoh, now all of us, we get it, the us's, we get it, but we have to take the message directly to Pharaoh, those decision makers that can alleviate the burdens on things that lead to equality and justice for all of our citizens. Until that happens, we face the challenge and the prospect that someone again could say, that someone could weaponize a phrase that nothing works.
Oh, wow. Okay. Thank you for that. So we have bias is a challenge in our landscape. Silence of the counter narrative is a challenge in our landscape. And interesting that both of those are, again, not visible per se, right? They're under the water. And so, Tom, I'm very curious to hear what you're going to put in this landscape as a local person working in the community around these two things. And again, for folks, again, this is a mutual learning environment. I see some of you capturing, some of you amening and affirming. If there's something that's said that, I can't write it all down, capture that in the chat for us all. So, Tom, what's a challenge in your landscape?
Well, first of all, Reba, thank you for all the work you did for putting this together. The West Ohio Conference works so hard every year. This is our 4th year of doing it. Bishop Palmer really started us off on a great note this morning. And again, we wouldn't be here without the hard work you guys do, and we appreciate the partnerships with ODRC and with all this work going on. Great things are going to continue to happen. But I kind of wanted to go off initially, before I get into my paintbrush strokes, if you will, talk about the bias and where we were. And many things have happened since I've gotten involved in reentry, whether it was here just locally as a volunteer or through the statewide efforts through ODRC. But if we look back, biases were much stronger in the past. We've made inroads, but they are still there. They are still heavily there. Some of the things we've been very successful at in Northwest Ohio and across the whole state of Ohio. We've been successful in making small steps but we have larger steps to take. Some of the steps we've worked on in the past have been ban the box. Many governmental entities have taken that checkbox off their application that asks if you were convicted, leaving it to a point where they give them a contingent offer of employment, and hopefully the conviction, when it is discovered in a background check, doesn't affect the duties of that position, and it should not affect that person from getting the job. So that was back in the 2015 timeframes. We were undertaking that work here locally. If we think about the systemic roadblocks that not only the state but local governments put up, we've made great progress with the BMV. We've not only got temporary reinstatement amnesty for 6 months at one period of time, where we helped hundreds and hundreds of people wipe out their reinstatement fees and get valid driver's license. Now we have permanent amnesty, where we are holding clinics here locally and getting people connected to the resources they need to get complete amnesty, if not partial amnesty, and then get back on a BMV payment plan. 8 years ago, BMV payment plans were not heard of. You had to pay the full reinstatement fee. Now you can pay as little as $25 a month and make $25 a month payments. Many courts here locally, and I think across the state, have begun to move to vehicle registration blocks in lieu of warrant blocks. A warrant block prevents you from getting valid if you owe the court fines and costs. Vehicle registration block does not. It just blocks your ability to get tags for a vehicle. So locally, we tell people to take two-part process. One, get valid, and then worry about getting the vehicle registration block released once you do get a vehicle. We've been very successful in shortening public housing look-back periods. They used to be very harsh here in Northwest Ohio for criminal histories. We've shortened those. And a huge thing under the Kasich administration, we had Medicaid expansion. So a lot of things have helped to remove barriers and roadblocks, but even though we've made all this progress, the bias is still there. We've learned that locally through one of our grants, where we have housing choice vouchers. We have them in our hands, and participants would get approved and have them in their hands and then not be able to get housing with them. So the bias is still there. We've made inroads, but there's many more inroads to still make, and we need all of you to help push that. One of the things I think could greatly add to the landscape is remembering reentry begins at sentencing. I think we tend to forget that locally here too. You know, I'm an attorney, and I've stood next to many people going to prison, some for life, but majority of them are coming home. You know, we always say 95% of individuals will be coming back home and be your neighbors. So we need to make sure those neighbors are successful, that they're integrated back into the community, they have housing, they have employment. Beginning those efforts at sentencing can do one thing. It can give the individual the hope they need to get through the incarceration portion of their sentence. This conference is about hope. We need to start building a better plan of reentry and communicating that to individuals as they enter the prison system from the community standpoint. I know ODRC is doing things through the reception centers, through their institutional case managers to connect people to resources. But that's one thing we can do on the ground in our communities, is to begin that work, put packets together, get them to the attorneys, get them to the public defenders, so they can share those resources with individuals. And hopefully they keep a little bit of a hope when they're going into a very dark space. And then I think the second thing we can do a much better job on, locally, we don't do as much in-reach. Oftentimes there's cost with traveling to the institutions. I think in-reach is so critical to the work of reentry, connecting with the individuals 30 to 60 days before they're released, getting that connection going, building that trust with individuals. We've been fortunate through one of our grants to, we're having a pilot test project that will be going into ODRC institutions, testing on a database we have here locally. I think that's where you reinvigorate that hope, is We told you when you were going in that these resources are here. Now we're here holding to our word that the resources are here. We've got them in our hands, and then communicating to them where they can go when those roadblocks are thrown in their way through fair housing. A lot of those issues, such as criminal histories from 25 years ago, those are discriminatory. Looking back that far, fair housing can help you, and if you don't have a fair housing organization in the local community, calling the Toledo Fair Housing Center here, they'd be more than happy to connect you to nationwide organizations that can help with that. But the bias is real. The bias is very real on the ground. But I also want to be mindful of, as Mike said, where we came from, where we are today. We've made inroads. There are so many more inroads that have to be made. The hard work still needs to be done. And we need people to continue to step up and come forward, not only in local coalitions, but statewide to continue the good work. And anybody on here that has a new coalition, feel free to reach out. We love the new coalitions. We want to make sure you're vibrant, strong, and that you're here 20 years from now. So
Right.
that's my piece I have to offer.
All right. Thank you, Tom. You actually segued into our second question about as you intersect, with, because all three of you do have this intersectionality to your work of working with community partners, of working with returning neighbors, family members, and policymakers. And the question is, what are one or two things that we need to add to our landscape that represent hope and healing? And Tom gave us three already, right? Doing the reentry prep before people even leave your community. That's not a novel concept, but it's something that we need to be mindful of and reminded of, right? That as people leave, just like whenever our family members leave, we some ways prepare them. They may never come back to us as family members, but for reentry, before they leave, give them that hope. And then as they get ready to come back, connect with them. And then when they are back, it's the roadblocks. We know the roadblocks and the barriers are there. How do we help them navigate that? So, Tom, you already answered the second question. Thank you so much for that. And so, Roni, what would you add to that as far as the picture that represents hope and healing in particular? Yeah.
Thank you, Reba. I believe one of the things that helps to add hope is opportunity. Not just opportunity in words, but really seeing it truly in action. Creating an opportunity for our folks who are returning back to the community, the people that we serve that are returning back to the community, to have people say a second chance, I say a fair chance. Because oftentimes when we put the folks that we serve up against other people in the community who don't have similar backgrounds, they can outperform them. And so I think a clear, true, genuine, and valid opportunity. And there are many ways that we can do that. We return approximately 18,000 people back to the Ohio communities each year from the Department of Corrections. And when we look at, and I've heard our Lieutenant Governor talk about this, when we look at our employment numbers, our unemployment numbers in our state, or we look at opportunities to employ folks in our state, oftentimes that community of 18,000 folks are not looked at seriously. And we really work hard, and Dr. Davis certainly can attest to this, as an agency, to ensure that our folks have access to programming, education, and things like that. We have college in every single prison across the state, including our highest level security facilities. And so, I think back about when the pandemic hit, and it was a very unprecedented time. None of us could really understand or knew what was happening in our society. You know, many of us lived in fear and wouldn't leave our homes, and we're concerned about our health and the health of our loved ones. And those same concerns were inside of our facilities, but we still had to release people. And so after our entire world shut down and folks were affected by our pandemic, as we transitioned slowly, I should say still slowly, out of this pandemic, we've seen the impact. Many restaurants, retail companies and organizations and agencies have closed. We still see the effect when we go. How many of you go out to eat and you go into a restaurant and they only have 1 or 2 servers and the restaurant is full? Or there's a long list of people or long line of people waiting and a bunch of empty tables because they don't have the people to serve. And it's not even just at restaurants. We see it, like I said, in other organizations and companies too. And so for me, what I think is important is that as employers, what are we doing to help with our returning neighbors, right? What are we doing to ensure that our returning neighbors who face these challenges of employment, what are we doing as employers to ensure that that if we hire them, that we can retain them? And here's what I mean by that. Our employers, we have some really great employers across the state of Ohio who have done some really unique things when it comes to retaining employees. But we know that the men and women that we serve need a little bit additional and special care. You know, they experience the trauma of incarceration, and sometimes dealing with some things that may be very basic for us, challenges at work, they don't necessarily always have the skills. So I think what are employers doing to create these opportunities so people can be successful at work? And I think about companies like Mansfield Engineering in Mansfield, Ohio, that has social service agencies coming in to service all their employees because they know that people struggle in general. Or I think about JBM Packaging in Lebanon and Cincinnati, Ohio, that when you look at their leadership in their organization, many of those folks have been impacted by the criminal justice system. Or NIA Manufacturing Company in Cincinnati that actually put social workers on their staff to support men and women returning from incarceration and the rest of their staff. And so when I think about hope and I think about what can be done, I think creating true opportunities for success is hope, can create hope. I think about creating opportunities for our men and women who are transitioning home to have a fair chance. And to me, that is hope. That can give hope.
Thank you for that. Again, language, right? Fair chance versus second chance. That was put in the chat. If you've been around me at all, I often say words build worlds, right? And the language we use, the way we say, you know, returning neighbor is much more personal than even returning citizen, though both have unique connotations to them. But yeah, fair chance signals equity, more of equity, right? And less of, yeah, we'll withhold punishment. We'll see how you do type thing. So I think that's really important as well. Just our language can be hopeful, it can be helpful, or it can be harmful, and it can be healing. So I think we need to think about that as well. So Mike, what would you add to that question? What are 1 or 2 things that need to be added to the landscape that represent hope or help?
Wow, Reba, it's hard to follow Tom and Ronette on that. Certainly, Tom is one of the foremost leaders and innovative thinkers in this work, and I've always appreciated his ingenuity and ability to address systemic issues in his community. Those are things that should be modeled not only around the state but around the nation. You know, Ronette, you're exactly right. Again, I think for me, the thing that makes me hopeful is this gathering. The fact that over 400 individuals have signed on to learn, to discuss, to grow in an understanding of this social phenomena that at one time, as Tom said, things were worse. So, you know, the issues were on the periphery of the landscape, and now these things are central to discussions in various areas, and so I'm hopeful because of this gathering. People from various industries and backgrounds. Just Leadership USA, our good friend Deanna Hoskins, who is an Ohioan, and I know there are some of the fellows who are probably signed on today that are a part of the decision making and the leading and guiding and teaching in this area, and we draw from them, and so I'm hopeful because Reba, not to get too sentimental, but I can remember you calling. I remember where I was at and saying, I have an idea. And so I'm not sure who got who into this. I remember you called and said, I have an idea. And so I pray that is a spark of hope for you out there, no matter where you are, whether you're the CEO, whether you have a credential and a lived experience, whether you're a service provider, that you can lead from where you are. I'm a religious service administrator, so I think I'm allowed to draw upon some of my faith context. And I remember Paul being put on a ship as a prisoner and on his way to Rome, and they ran into this severe storm. And Paul, as a prisoner, led from where he was at and ended up saving the lives of everyone on board the ship. And so, Reba, your approach to DRC with a heart of service, and I think your words were, how can we serve? And we've been on a journey ever since. And so for those who are out there, I just encourage you to go back and read Exodus and be reminded that you can use what's in your hand. God has given you something that you can use to contribute to this effort. We have various representatives of various demographic groups, but we are all part of a whole. This is a systems issue. And so while you might be singular and independent in some aspects of your work, you are a part of the system of reentry as it exists in this state.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for that reminder of how we got into this. So yeah, and that this is a system, right? And there are systems and there are relational systems. And I think we have to realize and understand that we're all part of the relational systems, and those are often more powerful than other types of systems. So let's use that to everyone's benefit. Tom, any other thing before we move on to the final couple questions about hope?
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to add one thing. First of all, Dr. Davis, I forgot, did you tell me to use Cash App or Venmo to send you that money? Thank you very much for those kind words. Help and hope. One of the biggest things we can do. My volunteers are beginning it right now downstairs at the lobby of our government center building here. We have an event called Going Home to Stay. It's our first Wednesday event. We hold it the first Wednesday of every month. We have since 2009. We held it when we were, if some of you understand what a level 3 is, up here in the northern counties, our county sheriffs will issue orders that we can't drive in winter storms. It's called level 3. We've even held it on a level 3 where people walk to the event to get help. But we have an array of service providers, BMV, Social Security, child support, attorneys, volunteers, mentors, drug and alcohol agencies, employers, you name it, they're there. We have about 30 to 40 resource providers that show up regularly every month, and about 100 to 150 returning citizens and their family members. While it's vibrant here, and it has been, I think we can expand it across the state and paint brush strokes of it across the state. I know Columbus has begun their First Step program. Other communities may have started a similar process that I'm not aware of. But if you haven't, we'd be more than happy to share how we got people together, how we do it. I'd encourage you all to do it, because when individuals show up, they really get help and they leave with a lot of hope. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah. And the hope is in that, look at all these people who've come together, right, to work together to create this continuum of care for folks. And yeah, that's just one of the models and the ways in which, in many ways, from my perspective, from the work I do, it's a very easy way to gather people and to provide hope and help and healing, all in the same place. Consistency is important. Once a month, you just, come, pardon my language, hell or high water or storms, we're going to be there for you because we care that much. But again, the hard part of it is the conversations that we get back to, the bias and understanding what happens if we don't respond in this way in that relational system. So just, yes, Tom, if you would put your email in the chat, because I bet some people are going to be blowing up your inbox after this. So I invite you to do that. So the last couple of questions, and then I want to leave about 10 minutes for some engagement and some Q&A with our audience. So let's put some people on our landscape. Just for general information, in our participant pool for this experience this year, roughly 55% of you self-identified as service providers, 24% of you as allies and volunteers, 23% as justice-involved persons, 21% as justice professionals, 14% as family members, and 11% as coalition leaders. Now, that does not equal 100%, because you got to self-identify by more than one role that you come into this space, which we all do. We all have different, multiple roles often in this space. So all these different population groups are in our landscape. All of you are in this landscape in one or more of these roles. So I'm curious from our panelists, pick a group. I want each of you on our panel to pick a group. What do you picture your group doing that is hopeful, helpful, and or healing in this landscape? So pick one of those groups, service provider, allies, volunteers, justice professionals, justice-involved persons, family members, or coalition leaders. What is your group doing in this landscape? And so I'm going to start with you, Mike, and then go to Roni and Tom.
Boy, Reba, I thought we were cool. So I'm going to take the politician's way out here and say this, because we have to see ourselves as part of a fabric, right? Interwoven to collectively address this issue. What I will say, and I believe Deputy Director Burkes Trowsdell will back me up on this. Our director has challenged us to do more. I'm sitting my office is right now, I'm right next to the superintendent of the Ohio Central School System. And she's opening up the doors, opening up technological opportunities to connect to educational opportunities and systems. We are, to colloquialize, swinging hard as a prison system, right? Really pushing the boundaries, unprecedented levels of in-reach, which I will say the video inReach program. If you as a service provider have not been involved in it, you need to go to our website, check it out, get scheduled to attend, to broadcast into prisons all around the state, so that the men and women can connect to your particular county. So unprecedented levels of inReach. I know Dr. Terrence Hinton and I'm not sure if he's here today, but could speak to the necessity of doing inReach and connecting prior to release. But let me say this, that there is an imbalance related to this work. And I get it. I think we've taken the veil off. We've pulled the covers back. You can see behind the fence at unprecedented levels about what we're doing. My concern is that when we so focus on the prison system itself, we lose our understanding of when we talk about landscape and context of what's really occurring. People are with us approximately 36 months, maybe upwards of 48 on average. And so the majority of their life experience is spent in community prior to incarceration. Ohio has one of the highest ratings for its citizens experiencing advanced childhood experiences. That means forms of neglect, abuse, victimization. These things are occurring at a high rate prior to incarceration. You're with us. We're like I said, we're swinging hard. Our director has said, hey, what do you want to do? How can we affect change? And she's initiating those things. You're with us, high end on average 48 months, but then what? You're back into community. And men and women, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but communities where reentry is concentrated are characterized by those things that are now ascribed to be or categorized to be social determinants of health. So education. Do you have access to education? Is education in the systems supported by members of the community? Do you have access to healthcare? And I will go on record and say, I think we have the statistics and the data to support in several areas, our healthcare system outperforms healthcare systems in communities. Those are problems. When you can be, we're in the midst of an epidemic of gun violence in our communities, these communities that we're talking about specifically, and communities where people have historically returned are now being gentrified. So as we look back over the last 20, 30, 50 years in some communities, social service providers have been planted in areas and in ways to address the needs of that particular community in close proximity. But now people are being moved to outer regions of cities, out of the central cities, and now they're still experiencing that concentrated return, destabilized networks, scarce resources, and now you're further away from the providers that were initially put there to help you. And so I would just say this, the way in which we can help is to get our communities righted, to improve the quality of life for people who are living in these areas where we have high concentrations of return. Last thing I'll say, everybody talks about evidence-based practices, and I could go on for an hour about evidence-based practices, but yes, I will not do that. I want people to like me. But the evidence, right? The statistic, the data tell us that one of the most significant predictors of success upon a return from a period of incarceration is the well-being, the efficacy of the community.
Okay, mic drop on that. Thank you, Mike. Lots to think about. Roni, what would you add to that? What population?
First of all, I just want to give Mike a round of applause. And this is a place where I think the chat should be lighting up, because what Mike is saying is very true. And reentry is a community responsibility. DOC is taking it on, but I'm essentially saying that my section doesn't necessarily need to be in business the way it is. So Mike, kudos to you for saying it. Sometimes folks don't want to hear it, but we have to be transparent about what we know works. So kudos to Mike. I was going to say exactly what Mike said, Reba. So I'll touch on families just briefly, since Dr. Davis stole my thunder. No, I love families. Anybody who knows me personally knows how important my family is to me and how much I value family. And so, DRC hasn't always been family friendly. Let's be real. Many families will tell you coming into the prison, they felt like they were treated like they were incarcerated, which is horrible. And that's another thing that our director recognizes. So we're doing a lot more around family, and we have a lot more to come. So in saying that, here's what I would like to see, Reba, here's what I think that families can do to be helpful, hopeful, and healing. Be ready to receive your loved ones home. Just that simple. Sometimes they leave very damaged and broken homes, and they come to prison and they are going through a lot of different things that help them heal. But the families need to heal too in the community, and it's so important. Educate yourself about the trauma of incarceration. In our family forums, we hear from families so much about how their family members who are coming home are staying in their rooms with the door shut, and they are certain noises and sounds impact how they respond. They're responding, I guess, kind of abnormal to noises and sounds and things like that. But when you understand the environment that they have lived in for however long they were incarcerated, you'll understand that prison can be very traumatic. And so understanding that, be engaged in your loved one's reentry. We welcome the opportunities for family to be engaged, whether they're coming into the facility for different programs, resources, and events. You're participating in our family forums in the community. You're reaching out to our office, but also connect with your local reentry coalitions. Most people will tell you who've experienced the local reentry coalitions, they are there to help families too. They won't, I promise you, Lola Simmons at Home for Good in Youngstown, Ohio, will not turn you away. She will not. She'll do everything she can to help your family heal from this traumatic experience of incarceration and build better lives for themselves. Gather resources in the community. We want you to be actively engaged. We want you to be helping your family with housing, helping your family with different resources that are out there that will help them lead better lives. So we want families to be participatory, I should say. And then also ensure your family is healed and that they get the help they need when your loved ones come home. We want the families to be better. We want them to be healed, and we want the culture of your home to be healed too. So families are extremely important. We have some programs where families can get involved and engaged. I'll put my email in the chat if you're interested in some of those programs. So thank you, Reba.
All right, thank you. And Tom, what would you add? Who's your group, and what do you see them doing in the landscape?
My group definitely would be justice professionals. Being an attorney, being involved in the criminal justice system, it may be easier for me to work that here locally. We've also had some leverage funding through MacArthur that has really helped shift the paradigm here locally on not only who goes to jail, who's coming home from jail, what resources are available. So I think engaging with your local justice professionals, and if you don't have somebody connected in your coalition or involved in your group, reach out to somebody. Luckily, in Northwest Ohio, we've had a number of attorneys that have been involved. We've gotten judges involved. Many of you know the name Judge Kuhlman. He's the chair of our Reentry CJCC committee. So having champions like that has really helped to move the needle with individuals that hold the power, that are going to determine how many years you go, or even if you go at all. It's not uncommon for me to pick up the paper, today's paper, tomorrow's paper, and read that somebody that had a felony 1, a felony 2 violent crime is being put on 3 years community control here locally. Years ago, that would be unheard of. You're going to prison. There's a lot of resources that the justice professionals here, the judges, that they know are at their avail locally, and believe it or not, they utilize them. They don't want to destroy a family. They know the impact that's going to have. They know it's going to impact not only that family, it's going to impact neighbors, it's going to impact the whole community. If we can get that individual working, that's a tax-paying citizen. So I think a huge group to really focus on, because I don't think we've really done this statewide, and we've been very fortunate here locally to have the connection we do with our judges. Many of our judges tell people, if you're going to be put on community control, you're required to go to the first Wednesday event. They incorporate that into their judgment entry. Probation officers come to our meetings. They want to hear what unique programming is out there through the reentry community that they can connect their caseload people to. So just don't forget the justice professionals that really kind of drive incarceration, and they can work hand in hand with you, and believe me, they want to, and they just may not know how to in their local communities. Reach out to them.
All right, thank you. Lots to think about. We have about 4 minutes left. I put in the chat. If you have a question, please use the Q&A button icon down right beside the chat to ask a question. Also, I put in the chat 2 questions that I want you all to respond to as far as completing or continuing to build this reentry landscape. The first question is, what do you picture? Looking to the future, what is one thing that needs to be added to the picture that will make Ohio's reentry landscape more helpful and hopeful and healing? And then how do you give voice to reentry issues in your community? That is a really important question to some comments that Dr. Davis made earlier about the silence, right? And also it addresses the bias that Roni and Tom brought up at the very beginning. So see, we're coming full circle. So learn from each other, put your responses in the chat to those 2 questions. And then if you have a question for our panel as we wrap up, put that in the Q&A section of the webinar. And then finally, relink.org is a statewide partner with the Department of Rehabilitation and Correction. Part of their work is to gather the reentry resources and the tangent resources to reentry, like mental health, like addiction services, those kind of things. If you are not registered with Relink, or if you do not know what Relink is and how you can use it as a community member, as an ally, as a family member, as a justice-involved person who has returned to your community, then stay on this particular webinar for about 10 minutes following our 10:30 close time here. And our folks from Relink, Rachel and Barbara, are going to kind of walk you through just briefly what relink.org is and how you can use it. And then if you're a service provider, how you can put your services there. Because when we talk about the in-reach, right, when we talk about the preparation before people leave our community in their sentencing, Relink is a valuable tool and resource for that. So just a plug for that. So final thoughts, Mike, Roni, Tom, looking to the future, what do we need to add? What do we need to add to the landscape? What would you hope us to add to the landscape? And just a very brief one thing you would add. And I invite Roni and then Tom and Mike.
Reba, I'll be really brief because I'm actually typing mine in the chat. funding. We need funding for reentry coalitions across the state and reentry organizations. We need to hold our legislators accountable, and we need that community support. Coalitions cannot function without community support. I'll put the rest in the chat.
All right, thank you. Tom?
Be mindful of the racial disparities we have and try to get your thinking on how can we change that. Locally, you know, we've had phenomenal MacArthur funding and all that. We haven't made a dent on racial disparities. We are really trying to focus on that. Statewide, we have almost, I think, a 50% African-American population, but that's not the average. I don't know what the average is statewide for African-American population, but I know they're overrepresented. Let's work on changing that. It needs hard work. It's going to be a hard lift, but it's doable. I think we need to focus on that.
Mike?
Last but not least, Reba, we need to account for violence. We need to follow Danielle Sered's advice to us. Until we reckon with the issue of violence, this issue will not go away. Second, and just as important as including people with a lived experience of incarceration, is including the voices of those who've been harmed. So victims and their advocates need to be added to this conversation.
All right, thank you all so much. Can we do the little emojis of hands clapping for our panelists this morning? You have properly positioned us to spend the next 2 days connecting, collaborating, co-laboring in this work together. So thank you on behalf of our participants. Thank you so much for giving voice to and guiding and painting our landscape. Let's continue to add to that and enjoy the rest of your day. Again, the Building Bridges website, you should have received an email from me today that gives you the link to that. That's your central hub for all your links and all your sessions and all that fun stuff, all the information I have to give you as the coordinator of that. So please use that. Stay on if you want to learn more about Relink and how that can be a valuable tool and resource to you, regardless of where you sit in the landscape and whatever you're doing in this landscape that we're trying to do. And I'm going to close with this, and it kind of wraps us up. Mike Davis referred to Danielle Sered's work, Until We Reckon. It's a book. Google it, get it on Amazon. It is phenomenal. One of the things she says that convicts me, that keeps me going in this work, is she has this quote. She says, the most legitimate function of prison today is to hold people that the community cannot hold safely. That is our call. That is our cry, right? And it goes to everything that we've talked about with this panel. So get the book, do the work, be encouraged as angels, as answers to prayers every single day. And so thank you, Mike, Roni, Tom. You are dismissed, I hate to say. And I invite Rachel Silvitz and Barbara Campbell from Relink to come on and talk to us a little bit about that. And so enjoy your day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Reba. Thank you.
Thank you. So ladies, I'm just going to turn it over to you for this time.
Thank you, Reba, and good morning to everybody staying on. I know you've been on for an hour, and what a wonderful session that was. I really thank everybody. I always enjoy listening to the speakers, and just a few phrases that I really loved, which I hadn't actually heard before, was the returning neighbors, which I absolutely love, and it's so true. And I know one of the phrases we always use is fair chance, and how important that is. And I just want to take a few minutes of everyone's time to just talk a minute about relink.org. I hope a lot of people have heard of it already, but in case not, I just want to share, and as everyone was saying too, creating opportunities that provide hope. I would actually say that is what the mission of relink.org is. We are a nonprofit, And really the whole goal of relink.org was to aggregate all the community resources that the state of Ohio has to offer, make it easy to sort, easy to pull the data, and to find the resources. So we've been working on this project for about 5 years now. We have about 15,000 resources that cover all 88 counties in Ohio. Reentry, I would have to say, has become just our personal passion. We here are at a second chance employer where we get to meet many returning citizens and walk through them in detail in their journey, and that's been an incredible blessing. And then we've also get to work with the ODRC, Office of Reentry, Roni and team on a version of relink.org that is now on the tablets. So the incarcerated individuals can begin planning their reentry. This site is free. It's going to always be free. We want everyone to have access to it. You can see here that you can search by city, zip code. You can search by a county. We're going to focus on reentry today, but you can see all the different categories we have. The data is also redundant in that you can find addictions resources under reentry. We just wanted it to be really super easy for people to utilize. So under reentry, we have some of the big questions that people are looking for. Obviously, housing, employment, and education are some of the biggest ones that we see. We also do list all the reentry community groups and coalitions. I think we pointed out on this call, these groups are so important, either to, for those of you not involved with them, to find one in your area and to become involved. And for those that are leading these, the incredible work you do is amazing. The amount of times your organizations are searched on relink.org is absolutely incredible. So people are looking at you and looking toward you for support. Just for time's sake, I'm going to go through and just show one example because we encourage everybody to just go to relink.org and begin searching. It's free, it's easy, you can use it on your phone. You can see here, this Fair Chance Employers is an example of how working with the community, this category used to be called Second Chance Employers. And I think the Fair Chance is so much better wording. And these are changes that we love to learn and listen and really incorporate the site to make it the absolute best it can possibly be. And before I go into the data, you can see here we have several links throughout relink.org that you will find that link to other sources to help. This is the link to the certification for qualification for employment that individuals can get before they're released. We have a link for that there. We also have a link to affordable housing throughout the site for people can find online real estate listings. You can see right here when you go to this page, you've got a link to Ohio Means Jobs that links to all the jobs available. We also list some of the common Fair Chance employers in a given area. And no matter what category you're searching, the search kind of goes like this. You select a geography, you select the topic, and then you start getting a long list, right? The boxes on the left are things that you can check. You could check each box and then you scroll to the bottom and then you could print it. If you're working with someone, helping them find resources, you can print them their own personal directory. Like if they need some food pantries, you can go in and find them a few sources of food. You can find them some employment opportunities. You can find some educational opportunities as well. So there's all a lot of ways you can help individuals. I'm just going to select one organization here. Each organization gets their page. They can upload their logo. They have a free text box where an organization can describe what they do. Relink.org does have a mechanism where each organization can register their own account. They can simply log in and update their data. And we do encourage everybody that's on the call that is a service provider or an employer in some way to log in and do that. If you have any questions, our team is very eager to help. We're at info@relink.org. Rachel, if you want to type that in, that would be great. But as you can see, it provides a lot of information very readily. Real fast, I will do another quick search. We do get a lot of searches for the addiction recovery. It has all the different categories of treatment available. I'll go ahead and put in Summit County where I am right now, just to like the list a little bit shorter. You can see how that's gonna narrow the list down a little bit. And click on that, and some different options come up. And then, you know, we could click on these. We do, for when it comes to addiction recovery, we do list if an organization is certified by OMOS or CAR for different certification organizations. But it is our hope with this tool. I could sit here and demo a bunch of categories, but I want to respect everyone's time. I know the next session starts in 5 minutes and want to give everybody a chance for a break. But the site is designed to be quick, easy to use, all the resources in one place. And it's really our hope to help all of you all that are on the front lines to be able to quickly help those that are in front of you, because there's so many needs that can come in. And we just want everyone to know that this tool is available, and just encourage everyone to use it. We have watched and we do track where the utilization is, and we've been really blessed to see it go up to several thousand, both users in the public and several thousand users on the institutional versions within the Ohio prison system. So we're very happy and excited to see that it's being utilized. We do believe, and we've observed, that there's a lot of resources available in Ohio. And I think one of the barriers is just connecting people to them quickly. And that's what we seek to help everybody with. And Rachel's on here. Rachel, do you have anything else you would like to add for everybody? Or if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer those as well. Stop my share.
We love to hear about all the work that the providers are doing. I love to meet with people as doing community engagement, just to hear how I can better connect providers together and better connect people to help the people that we serve. So I'm thankful for those relationships. If you want to get in contact with us, I did put it in the chat box. You can email us at info@relink.org, and I'd love to connect with you.
Yeah, and I would have to say, just ending on the hope, I think Rachel does a great job of gathering like quotes and hearing the stories about relink.org. She goes in the prisons and she gets to train those getting ready to come out, and also parole officers and anyone that's supporting those getting ready to come out, and just the stories that she's able to share, that it does provide hope. I think I remember some specifically when you're coming out of one of the women's institutions, and it can get so discouraging, I guess. And we always hear the bad stories or the challenges that everyone faces, but to be able to empower someone to say, hey, no, where are you going to go? Where are you going to be released? Look through here. There's a lot of options. You can start reaching out and contacting these organizations even before you're out, make a plan. And it just helps provide people hope. And we're really happy to be able to provide relink.org. And like I said, our main goal right now is just to create awareness, encourage people to use it. And if any provider out there needs any help adding or updating the organization, we just want to be here to support. So Reba, that is all I had. Did you want to close out the session, or?
She actually got off, so she just wanted to thank everybody for coming today to this opening session, and we look forward to seeing you in some of the other sessions later today.
And if you're in the Cleveland area, Cleveland or Youngstown, we'll be at those in-person events tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.